Hi, so as in the live session, we're just going to be making masks with paper. I thought I'd do a quick demo of how you might think about making one with cardboard. I'm just going to use box cardboard. It's not the most refined surface, but if you actually do quite careful papier-mâché over it, you can make it a really nice finish if you want to. And most of us will have boxes lying around. So I'm going to use this knife. Obviously be careful, maybe kids shouldn't be doing this on their own because Stanley knives are really sharp, but you can do it with scissors, you know, a decent pair of scissors will cut down a box okay. So I'm just going to cut this down so I've got two pieces that I can use. And I'm not quite sure whether two is going to be enough, but it'll do for now. Just get these overlaps off. So I have a rough old table that gets lots of work done on it, but obviously if you have furniture that you don't want scratched, you might want to put something underneath. So I'm just going to use these two bits, and as they both have flaps at the top, I'm going to make sure I use them that way. And I want them to curve so that they go round. And the way I'm going to try that is I'm just going to use this and some tape. And I'm just going to start bending this. And as I say, this is going to be it's going to make a bit of a crude surface, but by the time, we basically want this just to be a base. So it doesn't matter if it's a bit crumply. And I'm just curving it around the edge here. And the reason I'm using two layers is because if you glue them together, it'll help them to hold the curve, just softening up. And you can see that I'm bending in the direction of the corrugation of the cardboard, because it's easiest. So those two fit together. Actually, I don't think I probably need that jar, but it might be useful to have something to tape around. So that sort of curve will make quite a good mask. Make sure the flaps are at different ends. And so now I'm just going to glue them together. And once they're glued, once the glue is dried, that curve should hold. So I've just got cheapo craft glue, doesn't have to be anything special. I mean, you want a good even spread, but you know, doesn't matter too much. And it will be quite difficult to cut once it's dry. But if you're careful, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'm going to glue those together. I'm going to use this to pull it round, and then I'm just going to tape it to keep it tight while it dries. This tape should come off. I haven't got any masking tape, which would be better, but this will do. So anything you can sort of pull it tight around, because you want the pieces to dry. It's them drying in a slightly different curve, one on top of the other. And once the glue is dry, that should make the curve quite resilient. Fingers crossed. Okay, so I'll just let that dry. I've made a sort of rough template just on my place. I'll show you how to do that in the live session tomorrow. And I'm just going to cut out, I don't know if I need a nose hole with this one, because the curve will fit around my nose, I hope. But this will just give me an idea of where I need to place my designs on the actual mask when I come to covering it. So let's see. Yeah, that's about right. So when that's had a chance to dry really well, you want it to be properly dry, which, I don't know, probably be maybe an hour, 45 minutes or something. I'll come back and do the rest. So, later that day, let's have a look. Good, yeah, that's worked. You can see the curve is held quite well now because it's two sheets stuck together, and you don't actually need to use a jar, you can just use tape. I just thought it might be easier, but I don't think it probably is. So yeah, got a shape now that will be a good mask. And so now what I have to do is decide how I want to use it. Because it's got this line on it, just because of the cardboard I use, I think that, you know, that should be sort of probably where eyebrows are. So I'll put it to my face and just guess. Probably have it coming down to about there. So now, because I've got this template, I can lay it over. I'm not going to bother with a nose for now, because the curve means that's not so important. That's where the mouth would need to go. So let's decide what I'm going to do. So I've cut out eyes and a mouth. You could actually make masks just for decorative purposes, just to hang on a wall and just paint the full face on. You could leave the mouth and just have it as a painted mouth. You know, the shape that you make will have a bit of an impact, but what will make more impact is what you're going to put on it afterwards. The edges, of course, are a bit rough because it's crude card, and it's quite difficult to cut it out nicely or with a clean edge unless you've got very, very sharp knife. But what I would do then next, you could put a layer of papier mâché over this. Depending on what you've got to use, you can just use any old glue like this, sort of craft-based glue. So I just thought I'd show you making a start with some paper mâché with tissue paper. And what I do is I crinkle it up, because that helps to kind of disguise any roughness with the application. And hopefully it makes quite a nice surface for painting. And what I've got here is PVA or craft glue, called tacky glue, this stuff. It's watered down quite considerably, so it's sort of like the consistency of, I don't know, well, you can see it's sort of thinner than cream, and it's quite useful to actually slop on quite a lot of glue. I'm just using blue because that's what I've got, and I want to go around both sides of these holes because it will help make a nicer edge. It'll take a few goes, and it's better if you can build up a bit of a layer. Might not have time for that because the problem with the thing that stops you with paper mache is that you're waiting for things to dry. But you can see I'm just sort of ripping off any old bits of tissue paper and slapping them on what seems like a good space. And I can, you know, come back and cover any bits I miss. But this will give a nice surface and also a nice colour. You can obviously do it with white, but I happen to have a sheet of blue, and so I'm just using the brush to poke these bits of paper through to the other side. And you can see I'm not having to be too careful about it. The main thing is just to get coverage. And obviously, when you're doing something like this, you can choose any shape you want. You don't have to have a shape like this. You could make it square. You can use your imagination to create any sort of shape or features that you want. You could keep the top much taller or cut out horns. You could make spikes on the top, so as if it had spiky hair. No rules. You just have to have an idea and keep going until you can see it through. If I wanted a really, really nice finish, I would do several layers of tissue paper, and I would possibly even sand them back between layers, but how that works depends a bit on the glue you've used, I think, and how hard it's dried. So approach with caution. But you can see it's getting covered quite quickly. It's not going to take long to cover the whole thing. And I won't do 2 layers, but the more you do, the more you build up a kind of nice finish.